Hey everybody, it's your girl Tracy from Pearl Technology Consulting. I'm back with another cool Microsoft Excel tip. Today we're going to talk about creating a drop-down list inside of a cell. We've all seen it, where you can click on a cell and get a drop-down list of options or content from which to choose. And that is called a validation rule. Data validation is what we're going to do today. What we're doing is restricting the type of data that can be entered in a particular cell or range of cells. So in order to do that, you go ahead and select the cell or the range of cells to which you're applying this validation rule. For our example today, we're going to create a drop-down list in cell F5 right here beside the word month that includes a list of the months of the year for our viewers or users of the spreadsheet to select. So with the cell selected, on your Data tab on the ribbon, in the Data Tools group, Data Validation sits right here, and there's a drop-down of some different options. For today, we're going to talk about Data Validation, this first one. The dialog box has three tabs. There's a Settings tab, an Input Message, and an Alert tab, Error Alert. So on the first one, the Settings, as you can see, the selected cell is set to allow any value, and that's the default. Until you've applied a validation rule, any cell is able to accept any value. So you click the drop down and see your options. We can restrict the type of content for this particular cell to be whole numbers only, or decimals, or a list, which is what we'll use for our drop down list. You can even restrict to a date range or a certain time range, and even a length of characters or length of text in your cell. And then if you want to experiment, you can create your own type of validation rule. For today, again, we're going to use a list. For the list, it shows you here in Microsoft Office 2013, you get an extra checkbox in cell dropdown, meaning you do want to see that little drop-down arrow, and it drops down inside of the cell, the list. So for the list, you would click in the field that says source. You could do this one of two ways. For our first example, we'll just type the list, January, separating each item that's going to be that could be selected in the list by comma and a space. So we're doing the months of the year, and you would go on and on. The other way to do it is if you don't want to type the list and you have the contents of this drop down already somewhere else in the spreadsheet, like I do here in our example. I've already got the months listed here in column A. You could go this route. We'll get rid of that. As long as your cursor is active in the source field, you can go behind the dialog box and just select the range that has the list. So with my selector tool, the heavy white plus, I click on the left click and select from January to December, and it places the cell addresses for that range there, A1 to A12. Next, you can, this is optional, you don't have to supply an input message, but we've all clicked on a cell and maybe a pop-up message came giving you some further instructions or telling you a little bit about the content for that cell. That's what this is, an input message. And the checkbox there in Office 2013, show input message when the cell is selected. And you can give it a title. It doesn't have to, but it's kind of like you're creating an object in here in Excel and it wants to title things, but it's not necessary. The input message is the important part. If you want the message on your cell, you would just plug in a brief message. I'll just say select a month from the list. The third tab, Error Alert. We've all had our fair share of these. I know I have. Entering something that shouldn't be entered or clicking somewhere I shouldn't click, and you get a little pop-up telling you there's an error. That's what this is on the validation rule. You can set the type of error alert that pops up. Notice there, the stop is one that's going to stop the person from entering, give them a warning message, and ask them to retry or escape or cancel. You can do a warning, and they're just different icons, a little exclamation. It just kind of warns that maybe something's wrong with what you're entering, but you can go around it and continue. And an informational little pop-up that could come up. So we'll do a stop, an error alert. We're not going to take the time to title it, but we'll give our message here, invalid month was entered, or something like that. And once you're done, you've chosen the type of validation rule, you've entered the range or the contents for the drop-down list. We've given it an input message to pop up when the cell is selected, and also when an invalid piece of data is entered, we'll get an error message. So we'll choose OK. And as you can see now, we've got the cell selected. That input message pops up. When it's not selected, you don't see the drop-down arrow, you don't see the message, but when you click on that cell, there's that message. Select a month. The drop-down arrow is here, and we can select a month from the list. So let's test our error alert. Now we set this to give us an error, a stop error, if some invalid piece of data is entered. So because we have a list, and the users would be able to select from that list, does not prevent you from typing in the list. So I can click on this cell and begin to type something. And when I choose enter, that's when I'll get that pop-up message with the error alert that I created. It says invalid month was entered, and that's exactly what I created. So the drop-down list doesn't prevent users from typing, but when you set an error alert on there, it's going to help validate your data, make sure only what you want to be entered in that cell is entered in that cell. Because when they hit enter, they'll get stopped, and you'll have to retry or cancel. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and we look forward to chatting with you next time. Take care.